And good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody who is calling in or listening in. This is the ambassador call for the very first ambassador call, no, the very last ambassador call for the month of May 2020. And we're going to be doing a quick overview and orientation of the Charter for Compassion, because we could actually spend 2 hours oriented on the Charter for Compassion and truly not get the full embrace of it, because it is such a unique and rare organization on the planet today. And I would challenge anybody to show me one that is more or matches it, or in its intention, which is so far reaching and so deep that it really does possibly have more than 7 billion ways of being in the world. So the Charter for Compassion was founded on a wish by Karen Armstrong that humanity embrace compassion as the solution to all of our world's problems, where and connections to one another, that when we dethrone ourselves from the center of the universe and put another in its place, we can start impacting solutions and start improving conditions for humanity all around the world. And so that was a wish that she posed to TED. And she received a large sum of money as part of her wish. And that money went into conducting a survey of, I think it was 150,000 people all around the world contributed to a survey answering the question, what is compassion? And
Bob Challenger.
And in that, a group of people were convened called the Council of Consciousness, that was led by Reverend Joan Brown Campbell and thought leaders and religious leaders from all around the world, to take this information and somehow shape it into a charter, one that all could live with and all that could aspire to be. And they did that beautifully into these 4 what I consider impeccable paragraphs of the charter, which you should all have read by now. And so to celebrate the launch of the charter, the folks in Seattle brought Karen Armstrong, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Desmond Tutu, Lynn Twist, and a number of other luminaries and thought leaders together for a conference called Seeds of Compassion. And that was 10 years ago. And that Seeds of Compassion initiative created event created so much buzz in the world and in the community, I should say, that those people who were organizing the event sat back and said, wow, look at all the energy this is mucked up. What are we going to do with it? And they decided that the most measurable impact of change was at a community and a city level. So they created the first City of Compassion. Seattle is the first City of Compassion, launched 10 years ago. And that meant that the mayor and the city council, all the stakeholders came together in one room to affirm the charter and address all the safety net issues of their community, and saw their impact, their collective impact, and their collective solution, and also their collective responsibility to why there was this problem in the community and how they could resolve it collectively through the lens of compassion, and created a 10-year plan. So that started inspiring other cities. And then they realized, oh, there are partners out there we have to engage. And so businesses and corporations, healthcare systems, small groups, large groups, individuals also signed the Charter of Compassion and started showing up, and then started growing. It became evident that they needed their own sector, because people in arts and religion and business and healthcare and restorative justice and the environment and education all started getting organized. And therefore we have our partners are now organized into sectors. So when you go to the Charter for Compassion's website page, you will see the partners tab, and those partners are then organized into sectors. Now you can, as a partner, be a dual citizen in other sectors. So it was about 2 years ago. It was just about 2 years ago, maybe it was 2 years ago about this time that that I was on a volunteer staff call, and I realized that there wasn't really a voice for women and girls. And we thought we were in this country preparing for a woman president. And so we thought, well, we certainly need to have a platform for women and girls to elevate the voices of women and girls, because this is going to mean a lot for our country, but also for the world. And so by noon that afternoon, I was appointed the director of the Women and Girls, now called the lead of the Women and Girls sector, and convened our own Council of Consciousness, if you will, of what needed to happen and what this needed to be. We created through a vision process, our vision and our mission statement, which you should have all have read and agreed to by now, because you are an ambassador if you're listening or here on this call. And the purpose of our sector is also as widespread. We have further taken our partners and organized them into subsectors you can see with those working on to impact women and girls through the lens of arts and through the lens of healthcare and through the lens of all these different environment and so on. And so then we realized as women and girls, well, what do we do best? When we are in circle, all voices in feminine leadership practice, all voices are heard. So that prompted the idea of the Ambassador Initiative, so that ambassadors can join us, people that you are the wisdom of your community. You are the impact of your community. You are impacted by the compassion or the non-compassion in your community. So who would better know what this sector needs than you? So we host these calls so that you can be here, so that your voice can be heard. And not all voices can be heard, and sometimes more voices are heard than others. So we are a practice in listening skills. We are a practice in learning how to find our voice and anchor our voice and share our voice too. So it's also very self-serving and self-empowering as an ambassador to speak up. I've had ambassadors say to me, that we've had ambassadors that were very quiet for many, many months of weekly calls. And all of a sudden they're running task forces. So however we are serving, know that we are being served tenfold more at the Charter by you. So this is it's a safe place to dialogue. We don't record our calls typically, unless we've been asked to. It's a safe place to dialogue. It's a safe place to create and co-create. And an example of that was after the presidential election in the United States, there was a lot of fear, a lot of moral outrage, particularly by those who were partners of the Charter for Compassion. And so we were at that point, several months down the road, prepared, if you will. We had enough meat on the bones as a sector. We were prepared, if you will, to receive and be a safe place for these voices. And what transpired from that was a webinar series called Reaction to Response. We were reacting, and we allowed here in this space that opportunity to react. We were a safe place for voices to be heard, for fears to be experienced. We had never experienced anything like this in our country, and later I learned in the world in more recent years, in this country particularly, what happened after the presidential election. So it was really appropriate that we did provide that safe space to dialogue, to express our moral outrage. But then we quickly said, okay, what are we here to do? And we are here to turn that reaction into response. And that's ultimately what we do here. And that resulted in a 1-year webinar series that was very carefully and systematically crafted and beautifully facilitated by Lisa Berkeley. And I invite you all to go look at there. Every month had 2 sessions. So anyway, we express ourselves as a sector on our webinar calls, on our weekly, I beg your pardon, our weekly Zoom calls, by our webinar series, because that's a great way to leverage our network. And then most importantly is how we are impacted at a city level and how we impact at a city level. So we have a number of partners. Risha just joined us, and you'll hear from her in a moment. I'm excited about that. And Namrata and Brenda, and soon to be Karen, who you can see on this call, who are actively engaging at a city level to help inspire cities of compassion. Now I'm going to take a few minutes now and talk to you about what a city of compassion is again. Like I said, Seattle pretty much started the model, created the model of what it means to be a city of compassion. And on the website, under the tab of communities, you can see a toolkit of some of the basic structure. But one of the most important things to remember is that a city of compassion is autonomous in its organization. It's self-organizing, it's self-funding, it's self-moderating, and it's self-inspiring. Yet what is encouraged and highly recommended, and what seems to be the success model, is when you follow this toolkit recommendations, how you organize, how you name yourself. I recommend, it's my personal opinion, that if you're going to name yourself a city of compassion, it be compassionate solving, or compassionate California, or compassionate India, or compassionate Pakistan, or what have you, because social media, you're easier to find. It also is for branding. It immediately identifies you as part of this network or this constellation of the language you've all come to know me to use. And so something as simple as that makes a great impact when you're, and also now there's an initiative coming up, and you'll be hearing more about it, about a Twin Cities initiative, where cities will be encouraged and matched up to connect with other cities around the world, to share ideas and best practices and common challenges, maybe solutions for one another's challenges that aren't common, but one does really well and one, could use help on. So it's just a way of further connecting us. This is what the Charter does when it does it well. It weaves, it connects, it makes us recognize how much love and compassion and kindness there is in the world. How often do you all hear, oh, there's so much going on in the world, there's so much negativity, there's so much fear, there's so much. Well, I have to tell you, the more you come on these calls and the more, compassion is a major rival, isn't it? This world that we are in, this constellation, is so much bigger than all the fear and hatred and everything else, that you don't know that until you get here. Now, I might be preaching to the choir. So our challenge as ambassadors is to not preach to the choir and just try to recognize our impact in the community. As an interfaith activist, it became very stale for me after 10, now 17 years of interfaith activism at a community level. I got really tired of being at the head of a room and having everybody agree with me. Everybody's head going like this. I want to be in circle conversations, in one of many circles in a room, where people are going, no, challenging, questions, because that's where we start breaking through. That's where we start hearing different voices. That's where we start really making a difference. And that's where we start engaging in real humanity and having compassion for the other, right? So we need those nods to affirm us. That's what you can come here and get. That's what this is for. And also, I encourage you to challenge us. Greta has challenged us wildly over the last month, maybe more. I've lost track of time. Maybe it's 2 months. Maybe it's 3. But with taking a hard look at some stuff that we could do a better job at. So you're invited to bring those challenges. So there's so much more I could share with you. I wanted to give you a broad brush look at the history, the structure, and kind of the spirit of what we're doing here, how ambassadors show up. You being an ambassador can wear the compassion badge on your sleeve, just like Bob's got it right here on his chest. Although, you know, we are seeing it backwards because it's like looking in a mirror. Sorry, I couldn't resist that, Bob. So anyway, yeah, and thank you for being here. Oh, and by the way, the women and girls should not surprise you that we birth initiatives here, don't we? We have task forces. So if you're you're not ready yet to be a task force, like we were approached by Clay Boynton at the Parliament of the World's Religions in November in Toronto last year, that he was interested in starting a men and boys sector. And until that happens, we'll be the incubator here. We'll be the womb to incubate the men and the boys sector. And isn't that appropriate? We were approached by, we came to realize that, wow, we really need to hear the voices of the youth. So we have a youth sector, a task force before we can have a youth sector. And then we also have an LGBT task force that is just starting to get some attention. And so these are, oh, and a partnership for a Safe and Sacred Now task force, sorry, that's a really important one that is being led and directed by Donna Mills, who normally you would meet on this call, who will be convening her Wednesday meetings. Her next meeting is coming up, but that's to address violence, all forms of violence against women and girls. And women and children, I beg your pardon, women and children. And you can read about that on the Partnership for a Safe and Sacred Now, we call PSSN Task Force. And I know we're missing some task forces or some ideas out there, but again, like I said, you can spend 2 hours and not hear everything. So I hope that is a good overview for you. And now let's hear from you. First of all, ask your questions. And Bob, we're going to save you for last because it would be an opportunity for you to hear new voices and maybe have some of your questions answered or formulate some other questions. So what I'd like to do is invite you one at a time to share what you're doing in your community through the lens of women and girls. How is this impacting a city level, if it is, and how are you living the ambassadorhood, ambassadorship, ambassador responsibility? Yeah, and so let's start with Namrata. And Namrata, I imagine you should take more than a few minutes. Nobody should be rushed here, but we will keep an eyeball on the time. So go ahead, Namrata.
Hi. Hi, everyone. I wanted to share a few interesting updates from a women and girls standpoint. And also, Sandy, you had asked me to share about our regular calls. So since we have Bob today, and I haven't also had the opportunity to speak with Greta, just sharing a bit about our team in India. So we have currently work in 3 sectors: women and girls, environment, and education. And we started our work officially in 2017, later part of the year. And today we have about 45 women across 5 cities in India who are engaged in different kinds of work. Some of them are active, like a few of us who show up regularly on these calls, but then some of them are just kind of there to know updates, and hence we have different WhatsApp groups, we have a Facebook group. We try and convene weekly on a call, and we have varied participation. Sometimes we have 8 to 10 people, sometimes we have only 2. So it really depends on many factors. Most of our members are fairly young and they have childcare responsibilities, including a university student, etc. And we have been working in the space of compassionate cities a little bit, in a city in the north of India and also a city in the west of India. In this particular year, a couple of things that we are focusing on from the education sector, since Rakhi is not here, who's managing our education piece currently, on launching the SEE curriculum, which is the Social Emotional Ethical Curriculum by the Dalai Lama, along with the Emory University, and also planning to do a couple of residential retreats in the northeast of India around October-November timeframe, focusing on the environment. So those are the two environment-related aspects. We are also looking at following up on a couple of events which were conducted earlier this year when Marilyn, our executive director, was visiting India. So doing some work with schools, trying to set up a compassionate schools network, and something very interesting has emerged just off late, in fact, since last evening, which I will update you separately, Sandy, because that's still kind of shaping up. There is a fairly well-known Bollywood actor who has reached out and who I got connected with somehow, and I'm going to be meeting her next week. And she has a lovely story of her own and seems very aligned to our work and our vision. So that's just in a nutshell what we are doing.
Sorry. Oh my goodness, Namrata, beautiful report. Thank you so much. How many women did you say in India?
About 45.
About 45. Fantastic. Congratulations to you. And Namrata, as the regional lead in India, uses the Zoom network to have calls like this, because not everyone wants to spend their Friday night on a call with us. So thank you, Namrata, for being here consistently. And Rocky also is consistently with us too. So really happy that you're really so grateful for you. I want to point out, if you didn't notice in the chat window, that Brisha said that she has to go. She's right in a very busy time. She does say that great things are happening in San Diego and that she's going to be sending me a report. And then I'll get that out to all of you so you can hear how her work of Women's Woven Voices, and I recommend you all go look at this site. It's rare that you find a site that says so much in such a digestible way. And it's womenswovenvoices.org. Oh gosh, I hope I'm right with the org. And I recommend you, take a look and do the writing exercise. Spend a few minutes and look on her site, and she makes it so darn easy to do that. So, Brisha, if you're listening to this recording, thank you for your work. Karen, you were next. Oh wait, you're muted, dear.
Yay, I'm so happy to be here with all of you again. Oh my God, this is so incredible. Every time I hear all the great stories, Namrata, I'm super excited to talk to you because I'm certified for the SEE learning, social emotional ethical learning here in California. And I'm super excited. I'm also going to be working with some of the teachers and our superintendents to help them to have more compassion for themselves, to have more self-compassion, and to teach self-compassion and mindfulness to the children. I'm going to be reaching out to the SEE learning people to see if we can collaborate for the year-long program that I have written of a year-long curriculum of compassion, kindness, and peace education, which has been accepted to our local schools. And I'm super excited because for 2019, it will be in all kindergarten through the 3rd grade here in Solvang. And we're also going to be, I have a few volunteers that are helping to spread this through the neighboring cities here. So we're going to be working on we have 5 cities in the San Ynez Valley is what it's called, where I live. We have Solvang, Buellton, Ballard, San Ynez, and Los Olivos. So those 5 cities, I'm going to get to be compassionate cities here too. So I'm talking with the different people who are part of the city council here in Solvang, and they absolutely love this, love this idea of being a compassionate city. So we had, with my beautiful friend Bob here, is one of the founders of International Children's Month, and also he is one of the people who was responsible for helping Earth Day in 1990 become international. So I'll let him share more about that. But on this last week, we did our talking circle, our kindness circle with the children, and we had a talking feather because Bob suggested that we have a talking feather. I was going to use a talking stick, but the children loved the talking feather. And I have some beautiful footage of that, and I'll send that to you, Sandy. We also shared in the global wave of love, respect, and cooperation for all at 111, and the children have said that they will do that on their own in their classroom. Their teacher's going to make a little notation at 111 to make that global wave. I did my Kindness Changes Everything play for the kindergartners and the 2nd and 3rd graders, and I have footage of that, and I'll send that to you also. It was hugely beautiful feedback from all the teachers. The teachers have all asked me to come back for next year. It's a Kindness Changes Everything musical interactive play. So it's kind of like a musical quizzical. So we kind of go through the musical, but they're singing and they're dancing and they're answering the questions and they're doing their breathing exercises and they're doing their inner journeys. I'm also really excited to be ambassador for California for our 1 million meditators, and I really believe we're going to reach 1 million meditators. We're doing a beautiful global meditation that's going to be for 24 hours on June 1st. That kicks off International Children's Day and moves into International Children's Month. So we are going to be working with Bob and Heidi and Shannon. I had them on my show. I have a new show that I do called Kindness Connects Us, and it's being very, very well received. I have a meeting with Kevin and Marilyn on June 10th because I have offered to do a show for the Charter for Compassion called Compassion and Conservation, where I will be interviewing the partners to really help highlight and amplify the work that everyone is doing. And I'll also be presenting an idea that I have to be a spokesperson for California here, and to bring in more compassionate schools and more compassionate cities here in California. So I have an idea for a little reality TV show that I'm going to present to the charter to do, where I can go out and talk to people about the charter and see how many people really understand how important it is to have compassion in our cities, in our communities, in our schools, and how that will change our world. So I think that's about it. It's pretty exciting. Yeah, and then, also we had over 15,000 people have signed up for the Sustainability Now Summit. I have been helping with the Sustainability Now Summit. You can go, I put the link in the chat. It's globalkindnesstv.org/now, and you can go to the summit. There's over 30 amazing experts talking about how we can have a sustainable, thriving planet. So it's really exciting stuff. So
That's
I'm
really remarkable. I'm exhausted. By the way, if you're listening to this recording, and at a later time, all of the links and everything that are being mentioned here, that we're all seeing in the chat window, but you clearly are not seeing, will be sent along with this recording or down below in the YouTube link. So let me just make that point. Karen, thank you so much. And I
Yeah,
will,
they had a
I
great
will-
meeting with Clay too about the
Yeah.
circle, and he sent me his book, and I'm going to have him on my show
yes,
also.
that's what he said. And
Yeah.
Karen, and offline, let's have another conversation about Compassionate California,
Yes.
which
Okay.
was my
Okay.
entry point into the charter 10 years ago, 8 years ago, when I first heard about the charter at an interfaith conference and said, let's do a City of Compassion.
That's how we met.
And
I
then-
met you through
Exactly.
Marilyn.
And I said, well, and I brought this back to our women's interfaith group, and we said, well, we don't know whose city to do. Let's just do them all in California so we could be a state of compassion. So the intention is not to go right
Yes.
to the top, but to go
Oh, I would
city
love to help that
fill in the
happen.
gaps and then
Yes.
let it all in from the top down after we get the grassroots up. So you can't, you
Awesome.
got to have the grass before the sun has anything to grow. So when the sun
Perfect.
comes, which is upper government, comes and pulls everything up and out. So we will talk about that. There's my Kundalini for the day. So thank you,
Okay,
Karen.
I'll mute myself.
Okay, bless you. Thanks so much. Hi, Brenda. But before we come to Brenda, let's hear from Greta. We're going in order of appearance today, except for Bob.
Well, good morning, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, good. So one of the things that I'm working is, and I'm still trying to put together that initiative to actually try to end the male guardianship in Saudi Arabia. I have a petition going, and I'm not getting enough signatures in the petition. I hope to get 1 million one time in the future, in the near future. But what I wanted to ask you is the last phone call that we had on May 22nd. I think Brenda or Donna mentioned that there were a number of sites where I could put my petition to make it more visible. Did you send me an email with all of those sites? Did you
I think
send
that was Karen. Karen, can you send Greta the Sign Network to perhaps help promote, or maybe you can put that out so it gets
Absolutely, Greta. Please send it right to me. You have my email. You've sent me other things, so send it to me, and I'll put it into our network right away.
Is that it? For
Okay.
Greta? And then I've sent it out to Sarah and our networks, and yeah. So
I'm going to get We the World involved in this too.
yeah, good. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. I think that's all we can do. That is, you know, Saudi Arabia is a very close country. There is not a whole lot that we can do. The only thing that we can do is raise our voice for those people who don't have a voice right now, and make the world aware of the fact that what is going on and how women are treated almost as a possession, as an object, who are passed down from father to husband, and the rights that those men have to, you know, anywhere from abuse to beat to rape to kill a woman. So anyway, so just raising awareness. So this petition, the only thing it's doing is raising awareness and making sure that the world knows what is going on. Most people don't know about male guardianship and how that exists. But thank you so much, Karen. No, was it Karen? Karen, yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to send you an email today with the information, and we'll connect. Thank you so much.
And Greta, I encourage you to carry this conversation through the Partnership for Safe and Sacred Now Task Force, because that's ultimately, I mean, this is a flagship initiative that they can embrace. I'm not making that decision for Donna, but I think everybody would agree that it most appropriately fits in that, because
Probably the Youth Task Force too, right?
I think if it comes through, it's my thinking that if it comes through Partnership for Safe and Sacred Now, then it could reach. Because male guardianship, which impacts women and girls, impacts every other sector, but the youth is the closest, right? Just like ecofeminism is mostly impactful with the environmental sector, this is mostly impactful. Yes, thank you for pointing that out, the youth task force. Thank you, Greta. And I'm just going to plug in right here that building the youth task force, we're looking for ambassadors to show up for that. So an invitation will be going out with this recording, inviting participation in the youth task force. what that means and how to move that forward. Marie Roper Jones has offered to do this, and she could use some help. So we're going to get her that help, and that's what we do. Thank you, Greta, for keeping this.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's really important. Good morning, Brenda.
Morning. Welcome, Bob. Thank you for joining us, and thank you so much for your work with Earth Day many years ago. Very important. So I am, there's so much going on listening to all of us here. So I've been spreading the word a little bit here and there about World Kindness, watching videos, learning more about that organization as well too, because sometimes that's something people want to be, tuned into as well. What does kindness actually mean? And I think the short clip that I found and included on Facebook and was sending out, and I think I included in here, was really good. Then I was on LinkedIn the other day and found the new film footage of the 10-year anniversary of the charter. And so shared that again on LinkedIn and then through Facebook, bringing people to see that, because, any bit that we can synopsize what we're doing, the better off we are. Sacramento is a compassionate city. We became one officially November 2018. I work with the Shift Network throughout the year because we're getting ready to do the third 2020 vision. It's going to be called a summit now, and they have a full-time producer who I met for coffee the other morning with, and so now it looks like my involvement there will be that we will bring our hopefully, we're working on what's going to happen, but as Sandy was talking, the circle work and really engaging people in any conference is really important to me. Getting involved in Toronto with the women and girls there at the Parliament, doing that with Sandy was amazing. And then our work in New York really rippled out to the social integrators, social workers, all of the people there, because they've been around, gosh, my brain is, how many years now, Sandy? 125 years. The social assistance that they've been giving from the Henry Street settlement. And the event that we did there, is that right? Yeah, I think so. Was started by, oh gosh, my left brain is just not on right now with details.
125 Lillian Wald.
Yeah, Lillian.
Yeah.
So she was, best friends with Jane Addams. And anyway, the impact that we did there with the program director then rippled out to where all of the circles are now meeting in circle rather than the way that they were before, so that they can really start to be in communication and also heighten the listening skills. And the work that I've done with Braveheart Women worldwide is, how do you get to the essence? Because we're all working with, short sound bites. So doing that, and now we're working in Seattle with men and women, and then bringing the women and men together. So working on the gender equity aspect, which people don't understand, I don't think, what gender equity means. And so there's a cute little video on our Alchemy that somebody put on. It's these young women are called MeToo, M-I-T-O, and they did this video about a baby shower. And so that's on the Alchemy Women's Collective Women in Power on Facebook. So I viewed that. So these are the things that are happening, and it's really, as you know, grassroots. It's us. People sitting here like we are today, having these conversations and seeing the amazing things that are going on. And as you know, you go out in other circles and the conversations are not as rich. They're talking about the problems of the world, and they feel so unable to do anything. And so every time that we can lend a hand and invite people into these circles, I just think that's how we're changing the world. So that's all I'll say for now, because I want to hear from Bob and, invite you to keep on joining us because it's really pretty wonderful. And the interactions that we have throughout the week are very nice. That's it.
Brenda. Thank you. And I'm going to do a quick check-in myself. So I'm going to dive a little bit deeper. Brenda shared what were the events that she mentioned that happened in Toronto, in New York, and coming up in Seattle. It's called, has turned into be an enterprise that Brenda and I have started. And we've actually just last night launched a website, or a formal website. We've been kind of parked at my personal website, but now we have our own space. We're big girls now. We have our own space, and our enterprise is called the Alchemy of Our Collective Wisdom and Power. Yet we take liberty with that title for various events. Like, for example, in New York, it was the Alchemy of Women and Girls Collective Wisdom and Power. In in Toronto, it was Alchemy of Women's Collective Wisdom and Power. Yet to accomplish our goal of engaging both men and women through gender equity, this has become the Alchemy of Our Compassionate Wisdom and Power. And this is happening in Seattle. And we'll be working with the foremost thought leaders on gender reconciliation that Clay Boykin has brought with us, and of course also with Clay. I'm sorry, my internet is slow because I'm using it. And that's Will and Cynthia, Will Keepin and Cynthia Bricks. They're married. And so far, our speaker, the Dr. Reverend Kelly Brown, who's a dynamic, fantastic speaker. And this is also to help us reignite, ignite, honor, celebrate the 10th anniversary of the Charter, but it's also an opportunity to engage more people, more partners in circle dialogue. You will notice here that, and by the way, the recording of the video, the 10-year anniversary video, you can find it on our website here. I put it on the bottom of this page. So that's one way that, that we want to impact at the city level. This is what we can do to bring more compassion to at a city level. And did I read that title correctly? I should have said, if I didn't, that our other events have been the Alchemy of Our Collective Wisdom and Power, or Alchemy of Women and Girls Collective Wisdom and Power. This particular event is called the Alchemy of Our Compassionate Wisdom and Power. And so we are able to elevate the compassion in the community at the city level, and with the hopes and expectation that we'll be able to take this to every city of compassion and provide a circle conversation, an environment for circle conversation through learning how we're listening, how we're connecting with our body, and then how are we moving out into the community. Those are the pillars of every event. Those are the structures. That's the consistency you will find at every one of our events. So that's what I've been putting a lot of my energy into. And then there's also SDG 18, which is the 18th Sustainable Development Goal that I had the audacious idea to suggest that there be an 18th goal. And I'm not the first, and I'm sure I won't be the last. But the intention is to recognize our personal responsibility and self-advocacy into addressing every one of the Sustainable Development Goals. Now, I had brought this to this group and shared it when it first emerged, because it was birthed out of something that was heard on one of those reaction to response calls by Bob Zuber, who actually said, because I had said, why is it taking so long for the Sustainable Development Goals to get accomplished? And his comment to me was, and I quoted it because I had to go back and listen to the recording and make sure I got it right: good policy requires better people. Policy is personal commitment, not just an institutional one. It's not just about the agency, it's about us. And that all you can replace policy with the Charter for Compassion. It's not just a Charter for Compassion initiative. It's not about the charter. It's about, and just holding up this banner, this flag called the Charter for Compassion. It requires us to step into that. And if stepping into it means being better listeners or better meditators or better prayers, or just being a little bit more kind in our day, or does it mean really stepping up and seeing our impact? You know, how much plastic are we buying? Because if we're buying it, we're throwing it away, right? Or if we're buying it, you know, those plastics are getting into our system. That's just an example, right? So how are we paying attention to ourselves? And that comes through the listening to that Brenda mentioned and that we do in our alchemy event. Anyway, so that made me realize, then we need an 18th goal of self-awareness and personal agency. And by the way, this little logo, when I first presented it to this group, everyone noticed that I had the arrows all facing towards the little person. And everyone was so adamant, you got to have equal number of arrows going out, or at least some arrows going out. So we flipped a couple of them. So you know, the women and girls sectors helped to birth this initiative too, which recently was taken to the United Nations at a conference on emotional intelligence at the UN. So who knows where this is going? It was just an idea. We have some time to perhaps get this thing as part, and I happen to know some people that are involved in the committee at the UN. Who knows? It doesn't matter. As long as it makes us recognize our role and responsibility in every one of those 17 goals. That's all I'm going to say about my check-in, besides the fact that I've been a crazy nut woman because I just moved 30 years in 30 days to another state. I uprooted my California, my sand between the toes, you know, girl, to a new kind of sand. So it's just, so everyone here has been very patient and kind and generous and loving and compassionate to me. Brenda has been on the receiving end of my crazy, and I've been on the receiving end of her calm and love and remembering who I am. So we do more than just stuff out there. We are really good for one another here. So I'm going to take this time to thank you all. Now, Bob, let's hear from you. Tell us everything we can possibly know. By the way, our calls go anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half, an hour and 15 minutes. If we prepare for an hour and a half and we end early, we're good. So do take some time and share with us. By the way, here's the link I wanted to share. But also drop into us any links we can have too. And take it away. Let me unmute you. There you go.
Well, thank you, Sandy. That's wonderful to be here. And I live in about an hour west of Toronto in a city called Cambridge. So I'm in Cambridge, Ontario. And as far as I know, we don't have this city to be a compassionate city, but that's going to be one of my priorities after this call, is to do so. So, and well, Karen said that I had something to do with the first International Earth Day, which was April 22nd, 1990. And I didn't initiate it at all, but I was living in California at the end of all of '89 with Global Family, with Barbara Marx Hubbard's organization, living in community with her. And she and I were extremely close, living in community with her. And then I'd be her host when she came to Canada. I went to Sweden to fill in for her for the second campaign for the Earth Conference in Sweden. She couldn't make it, so she asked if I could do it for the chairpersonship of networking and communication. So I did that. But anyway, for Earth Day, when I was in California, I heard about, there was only one Earth Day before 1990 that was celebrated, and it was April 22nd, 1970, 20 years earlier. And it was primarily only in the United States. They had a senator close down the government for the whole day, and they had these radical hippies come in and educate the politicians about what was really going on with the environment, because they didn't know. And so from that one day in 1970, April 22, we got the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, the many environmental initiatives, and I mean, it's all about informing, and people make changes when they do that. It was a grassroots effort, of course, and that's terrific. By the way, the November 19 date for your gathering in Seattle is a prolific date. It's one of the it's something called the Pleiadian lineup, or the Pleiadian alignment, that takes place every year between November 15th and 19 and 20, 15 to 20. And the first campaign for the Earth Conference that I initiated was in Sedona, which was November 16th to November 19th, 1989. So anyway, that's a great day.
Yeah, our date is the 16th, but it sounds like we fit in there.
I got to tell you something.
Yeah. So yeah,
Bob, just
Yeah.
really quick. So I was with Grandmother Fortamayo last month in
Guerneville. Wow.
Yeah, in Guerneville, and she announced she's Palladian.
Oh yeah, we all are.
Well,
We have DNA.
oh, okay. I had never heard we all are.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, yes, we are. And Cryon is a great source for this information. I don't know
Oh yeah, I know.
Cryon, but I sure do.
Anyway,
And,
sorry. I just
No, and you're in Sacramento. I've been there. Yeah, when I was in California, I was living with a global family, and one of the co-founders, Carolyn Anderson, and her twin sister, Marion Culhane, their mother they came from Sacramento. Anyway,
Oh, okay.
beautiful city.
Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no, I'm glad you, anyway, so for Earth Day 1990, again, like I said, there wasn't anything celebrated really formally after 1970. And the radical hippies that organized the 1971 came together in the middle to the end of the 1980s and said, things haven't changed very much in the last 15 to 18 years. We need to do it again, but make it international. And I heard about that when I was in California with Barbara. And when I came back to Canada, I rented a house in Fairfax in Marin County, just north of San Francisco. And I came back to Canada because of some business. I used to own the largest RE/MAX real estate office in North America. And there was some problems because the market had crashed in 1989 after I went down to California. And anyway, I had to come back. And when I got back, I did some research about what was being planned to celebrate this upcoming Earth Day, which was April 22, 1990. And this was January. And there wasn't much going on in Toronto. There was a single mom with 2 jobs, and she had an answering machine, and she couldn't even keep up with the questions that people were asking. So I got a hold of Nigel Seal out in Victoria, British Columbia, who was the president of Earth Day Canada, and said, well, listen, I've got an office up in the east end of Toronto that could host, I could become the voice for Earth Day in Toronto. And told him, and so I formed a company called Earth Care Enterprise Corporation, just so I could have a shell to be able to get phones and fax machines. And it was before the internet was really popular. And so, and Toronto is really the headquarters of media for all of Canada. And so it was a good place for me to be promoting Earth Day. And I eventually became the voice for all of Canada, because of the communications that I went door knocking, I went to schools, I went to businesses, I went to everywhere. And in Toronto, we had 500,000 people apparently attend that first Earth Day in Toronto on April 22, 1990. And then these radical hippies that organized this event, April 22, 1990, didn't want to do anything other than just to get it out there and get people involved, and they didn't want to keep running it. So I got a hold of all the Earth Day offices around the world, and I sent them a package of information about why we needed to keep it going. And I had some bumper stickers made up, Campaign for the Earth, Make Every Day Earth Day, and then some badges with the same slogan, Campaign for the Earth. Campaign for the Earth, by the way, was a term that Jose Arguelles coined. He also coined harmonic convergence, which was August 16 and 17, 87. Anyway, he read The Mayan Factor, and when I read that book in October of 88, that became my mission, and I went down to California to live with Global Family, which was Barbara's organization, and I went down there to put on the first Campaign for the Earth conference, like I mentioned already, which took place in November of 89. Anyway, so besides that, I'm delighted to be here, and I'm delighted that, you know, this is the era, thank goodness, thank goddessness, that this is, the women are coming back in power, and I totally support that. And at the closing ceremony in Sedona in 1989, I was asked, we had 120 people in a circle, and we were inside, and Phil Lane Jr. was leading the ceremonies there. And anyway, because I had initiated, Sasha White was also involved in organizing it she's in Austin, Texas now. But anyway, because I had initiated it, put up the money to get it started, in the closing ceremony, they asked if I could, and we had the torch from the first Earth Run by David Gershon. David had brought it to Global Family when I was with Barbara, and he had left it there, and I had taken it down to Sedona. And so I had that torch for the first Earth Run, one of them, and I was asked to take that torch in extinguished and apologize for the abuse of power that men had perpetrated on this planet. And I did that. And then I gave it to Phil Lane Jr. to relight it. And he was standing beside a lady from Greece who represented Gaia. And the two of them relit that flame, and they passed it around to every one of us in the circle, 120 people, and we all spoke into it how we wanted to see the world to be in the future. So anyway.
Bob, I've held that torch in my hand, if it's the same torch. If not, it's a figurative version of it. And it's what John Raymer is taking around the world right now.
Yes, I know.
As a matter of fact, the Compassion Games, the original logo for the Compassion Games was a flame.
Yes.
He said, no, it's got to have hearts in it. The flames have to be the hearts. But Bob, I think we have some common friends. Of course, I fondly call him sister brother Chief Phil Lane.
Okay.
who, when I lived in California, stayed with me, and his daughter is actually a very dear sister of mine. And actually, she and Brenda and I are on a committee for a Charter for Water, which is something we need to talk to you about too. But as well, Connie Baxter and Andrew Bailey, you may know those names as being neighbors. They live in the community. What was the name of the community you lived in with Barbara last?
It was in San Anselmo, California, in Marin County.
Oh, I beg your pardon. This is in Colorado. I beg your pardon.
Yeah, she was living in Santa Barbara actually at the time, but he was the co-founder, and that's where Carolyn Anderson, one of the other co-founders, had a house. It was a community house, and anyway.
Sorry.
Yeah, so Phil Jr., you know, I just spoke to him recently, and he like I said, he was doing all the ceremony for the one in Sedona in November 16 to 1989, but he said to me on the phone the other day, he said that I really didn't have any knowledge about what was going on with the environment. This was all news to him at the time. But he certainly is leading the charge to make this world a sustainable world. And now we really need to focus too on the pollution that we're causing as humans, because that is a real problem that we can address.
Yeah.
Whereas many people, including myself, believe that this climate we're going through, this change in climate, is a cycle, is cyclical. It's proven in the trees and in the ice cores that this happens regularly. Oh, no. And the warming is followed by a cooling, and we're heading into, as Tryon talks about, a global winter.
So thank you for pointing this out, and kind of tying this back down to the charter. One of the things that we have to take advantage of are those sectors and the intersectionality that lies there. of the sector and the interrelatedness and the interdependence and the inner solutions that lie within the charter. Because as you know, because we have a business sector, and imagine the work that we could do at the charter when the environmental sector, women and girls sector, and business sector lock arms. Because then we can start recognizing our impact on the environment of over consumerism, right? And that's one really big way, right? I mean, gosh, when we stop buying gasoline and when we stop buying plastic, when we stop buying things that produce more trash, that's
Yes.
an easy thing for us to do. It's just an easy thing we can do just to pay attention to our buying patterns and habits.
Absolutely, yeah.
A little
There's many-
inconvenience, okay?
Many
So,
cities around the world, many cities around the world and countries now that are banning plastic and other things like that that are creating the pollution. So that I hope will continue.
well, and yes, we can now, we're at a place of hope and faith because, you know, we've been warned by all those radical hippies who weren't so radical, were they? Now we're just common folk, you know.
Yeah,
Back then we'd be like, well, you know, and I've had
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
had a number of eye rolls, you know, in my lifetime, more than I could count. Bob, thank you so much for everything you're doing. You need to meet the sector lead of the environment sector. Her name is Kate Trinka. Namrata is probably doing cartwheels right now in her living room because, and is an environmentalist herself, I'm sure, and recognizing that, you know, this is such an important conversation. This and, you know, these, you know, women and girls and the environment are two sectors that demand, we're at the point of now, mother bear, hands on hips, shoulders back. This is my, I mean, business voice. I'm in my Marianne Williamson low octave, right? You know how she drops down? Oh yeah, I mean business, right? Don't mess with mama. You go clean your room, right? This is where we're at right now. And with the women and because we are the two life-giving forces that are most disproportionately impacted by greed, by fear, by well, there, what more is there besides fear?
Yes, I agree.
Things, right?
Yep.
Thank you. I cannot be more great. I'm bowing deeply. If I got down on the floor, you'd see how dirty my floors were. But I'm bowing deeply to you all for being here. Yeah, I really am so grateful, and especially everybody who's listening to this recording and couldn't be here today or normally can't be here today, but depend on these recordings to stay connected. Thank you. We're all grateful, even though we may not hear everything you're doing. We know if you're listening, if you're even tapping into the charter, if you're living the charter for compassion, that's enough. Thank you very much, everybody. And I hope you have a